Have you ever wondered if famous people's homes are really haunted? Today, we're going to explore 10 spooky houses where UK celebrities have lived, and the strange, scary things they experienced. These are true ghost stories that will send chills down your spine. Get ready to hear about footsteps in empty rooms, mysterious shadows, and ghostly figures that refuse to leave. Stay with us, because these haunted homes have secrets you won't believe. If you love spine-chilling ghost stories and real hauntings, hit that subscribe button and join us for more terrifying tales from the UK. Don't miss out on our next haunted adventure. 1. Kate Winslet. Kate Winslet, the famous actress known for her role in Titanic, once lived in a very old and beautiful house in the UK. The house was located in Sussex and had a long history. People in the village already believed the place was haunted even before Kate moved in. Locals would often talk about strange things happening there. They said the house was over 300 years old and had seen many families come and go. Some even claimed that during the Victorian era, someone had died in one of the rooms and that the spirit never left. Kate herself admitted in a few interviews that she felt something strange about the house. She said there were times when she felt like someone was watching her, especially when she was alone. Doors would creak open without wind, and sometimes she heard footsteps upstairs when nobody else was home. She also talked about cold spots in the hallway that didn't make sense, even in the middle of summer. Lights would flicker, and sometimes the family dog would growl at empty corners of the room. The dog would bark at thin air as if it could see something no one else could. One of the scariest things happened when Kate was home alone reading a book late at night. She said the lights went off suddenly, and she felt someone brush past her in the dark. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but then the light came back on by itself a few seconds later. She also told a story about hearing a woman humming in the bathroom upstairs when no one else was home. When she went to check, the room was empty, but the mirror was fogged up like someone had just taken a shower, even though no one had used it. Some guests who stayed in the house also felt uneasy. A few even refused to stay a second night. One friend said she woke up and saw a shadow standing near the bed. The shadow didn't move or make a sound. When she turned the light on, it disappeared. Another friend claimed she heard whispering in the guest room at night and had trouble sleeping. These stories made Kate and her family feel very uncomfortable. Eventually, Kate moved out of the house. She never said that the ghosts made her leave, but she admitted that the house never felt peaceful. She said it was beautiful, but there was always something off about it. Locals still say the house is haunted, and new people who live there have kept quiet about their experiences. Some believe the spirit is still there, waiting and watching. 2. Daniel Radcliffe. Daniel Radcliffe, the actor who played Harry Potter, once shared a scary story about a haunted place he stayed in while filming. It didn't happen in his own home, but in a rented house in Scotland where he was living during the shoot of one of his movies. The house was big, old, and very quiet. At first, everything seemed fine, but soon strange things started happening that Daniel could not explain. He said that the house had a very cold feeling, even when the heat was on. It felt like someone was always standing behind him, even though no one was there. At night, Daniel would hear noises coming from the attic, like footsteps or furniture being moved. But when he checked, everything was still and silent. He even asked the crew if someone was living upstairs, but they said no. No one used that part of the house. One night, Daniel woke up in the middle of the night and heard whispering. The voices were very soft and came from the hallway. He got up to look, but the hallway was empty. Still, the whispering continued, like two people talking just out of sight. When he tried to go back to sleep, he felt a strange pressure on his chest, like something heavy was sitting on him. He couldn't move for a few seconds, and it really scared him. Later, some people told him it could be sleep paralysis, but Daniel believed it was something more. There were also times when the lights would turn off and on by themselves. Once, a lamp in his bedroom shattered for no reason. It didn't fall or get touched, it just broke into pieces. Daniel said he couldn't explain it. A friend who visited him said she felt dizzy inside the house and had a strong urge to leave. She said it felt like the house didn't want them there. After just one night, she refused to come back. Daniel didn't speak a lot about this place, but he did say in an interview that he believed in ghosts after that experience. He said the feeling in the house was wrong, and that he always felt like he was being watched. He tried to laugh it off at the time, but deep down, he knew something was not normal. After the movie filming was done, he left the house and never returned. He didn't want to know more about its history. Some local people later told reporters that the house had a tragic past. A woman was said to have died there many years ago under strange conditions. Her spirit, they said, never left the house. Daniel's haunted stay was short, but it left a deep mark on him, and he has not forgotten the strange events he lived through in that quiet, creepy house. 3. Benedict Cumberbatch. Benedict Cumberbatch, the well-known actor famous for playing Sherlock Holmes and Doctor Strange, once lived in a flat in London that he believed was haunted. The flat was in a very old building with high ceilings and creaky wooden floors. It had a strange feeling from the beginning, like something was hiding just out of sight. Benedict didn't believe in ghosts at first, but things happened in that flat that made him change his mind. He said the first strange thing was the sound of footsteps at night. He lived alone, but almost every night, he would hear slow, heavy footsteps walking down the hallway. He would get up to check, but no one was there. The sound always stopped when he turned on the light. Sometimes he would hear the footsteps again, starting from the other end of the hallway, like someone was pacing back and forth. He also said the lights in the hallway would flicker often, even though the wiring had been checked and fixed. One night, while reading in bed, Benedict felt a cold breeze pass through the room, even though all the windows were closed. He said it felt like someone had entered the room and was standing in the corner. When he looked, he saw nothing, but the feeling stayed. He could not sleep that night and kept looking over his shoulder. He tried to ignore it, but it kept happening. Books would fall off shelves by themselves. Once, a framed photo flew off the wall and landed on the floor far from where it was hanging. It didn't just fall, it looked like it had been pushed. Friends who visited also said the flat gave them a strange feeling. One friend refused to use the guest room after hearing whispers at night. Another said he saw a dark figure standing by the kitchen door. When he blinked, the figure was gone. Benedict thought maybe it was stress or imagination, but the events kept happening, always at night, always in the same places. He later learned that the building used to be part of an old hospital during the war. Some people said that many people had died there, and their spirits still wandered through the walls. After hearing that, Benedict began to wonder if the ghost was one of those souls. He never saw a clear ghost, but he felt something that he could not explain. After a while, he moved out of the flat. He didn't say the ghost was the reason, but he admitted he never felt safe there. Benedict has spoken about the experience in interviews. He doesn't joke about it. He says he never believed in ghosts before, but after living in that flat, he's not so sure anymore. The strange events, the cold feelings, and the whispers in the dark stayed with him, even after he left. For Noel Gallagher. Noel Gallagher, the famous guitarist and songwriter from the band Oasis, once lived in a house that he believed was haunted. The house was in London and was very large and old. Noel moved in with his wife and young daughter. At first, they were happy because it was a beautiful home. But very soon, strange things began to happen that made Noel and his family feel scared and uncomfortable. Noel said he started noticing strange things late at night. The lights would flicker on and off without anyone touching them. Doors would open slowly by themselves, even when the windows were closed and there was no wind. He also heard footsteps upstairs when he knew no one else was there. The sound was heavy, like someone wearing boots, walking slowly from one room to another. When he went to check, no one was there and the rooms were empty. The scariest part for Noel was what happened to his daughter. She started waking up in the middle of the night, crying and saying she saw a man in her room. She couldn't explain what the man looked like, but she pointed to the same corner every time. Noel and his wife tried to comfort her, thinking it was just a nightmare. But it happened again and again. One night, she even refused to sleep in her own room and asked to sleep with her parents because the man kept looking at her. Noel later said in an interview that he tried to stay calm, but deep down he was scared. He didn't want to admit that something could be in the house that they couldn't see or explain. He tried to ignore it, but it only got worse. One evening, while sitting alone in the living room, he saw something move out of the corner of his eye. It was like a dark shadow crossing the hallway, but when he turned to look, no one was there. He checked the house, but it was empty. Visitors also felt strange in the house. One friend said he heard whispering in the hallway and felt like someone brushed past him, even though he was alone. Another person said she saw a shadow standing near the staircase, just watching, not moving. After hearing all these stories and seeing how scared his daughter was, Noel decided to leave the house. He and his family moved out not long after. Noel said he didn't want to live in a place that made his child afraid to sleep. He never found out the full history of the house, but he always believed it was haunted. He said in an interview that even now, thinking about that house gives him chills. It looked beautiful on the outside, but something inside felt wrong, like the house had a dark secret it didn't want to share. 5. Adele. Adele, the world-famous singer known for her powerful voice, once lived in a huge mansion in Sussex, England. The mansion was very old and had a long history. It was once a convent, where nuns used to live and pray. The building was over 100 years old, and many people in the area believed it was haunted. Adele moved there to enjoy some peace and quiet, but what she experienced was far from peaceful. Soon after moving in, Adele began to feel uncomfortable in the mansion. The house had many rooms and long hallways that echoed every sound. At night, she started hearing strange noises, footsteps in empty rooms, doors opening and closing on their own, and soft whispers that came from nowhere. She first thought it was the wind or maybe old pipes, but the sounds continued every night. One night, while lying in bed, she heard a loud crash downstairs. She rushed down, but everything was in its place. Nothing had fallen or broken. It made no sense. Adele felt so uneasy that she refused to stay in the mansion alone. She was so scared that she hired a female bodyguard to stay with her full-time. She told her friends she didn't feel safe in the house and believed there was something strange going on. The worst part, she said, was the feeling of being watched. Even when she was alone, it felt like someone was standing behind her or looking at her from the shadows. There were also cold spots in the house, places where the temperature dropped suddenly, even when the heat was on. Sometimes lights would flicker, and the sound system would turn on by itself, playing random music in the middle of the night. One of her friends who visited said they heard a woman crying in one of the rooms upstairs. When they went to check, the room was empty, and the crying stopped the moment they opened the door. Adele later spoke about the mansion in interviews. She said she didn't stay there very long because the feeling of fear was too strong. Even though she loved how beautiful the house looked, she could never relax there. Some believe the ghosts of the nuns who once lived there are still in the house. Others say something darker is hidden in its history. Adele never confirmed what exactly she saw or felt, but she made it clear that she believed the house was haunted. After moving out, Adele never went back to that mansion. She now lives in a different home, far away from the haunted one. The mansion is still there, but people say it's been hard to sell. Everyone in the area knows about Adele's experience, and many believe the spirits still live inside those old stone walls. 6. Keira Knightley. Robbie Williams, the famous British singer and former member of the band Take That, once lived in a grand mansion in Wiltshire, England. The house was huge, beautiful, and very old. It was called Compton Basset House and had been around for many years. When Robbie bought the house, he was excited to live in the countryside. But he quickly started to notice strange and scary things that made him believe the mansion was haunted. Robbie said he and his wife Ada began hearing strange noises at night. They would hear footsteps above them, even when no one was upstairs. Sometimes they heard voices, like someone whispering in another room. Doors would creak open slowly on their own, and lights would flicker without reason. At first, they tried to explain it away. Maybe it was the old wood, or maybe the wind. But things kept happening, and they became harder to ignore. One night, Ada was walking through the hallway when she saw a shadow move across the floor. She thought it was Robbie, but when she called his name, no one answered. She checked every room, and he wasn't there. When she told Robbie, he admitted he had seen shadows too. Sometimes they looked like a person standing in the corner of a room, not moving, just watching. When he looked again, the shadow was gone. Robbie also said that some rooms in the mansion felt colder than others, even with the heat on. He said the air felt heavy in certain places, like someone was standing right next to you, even when the room was empty. Their children refused to go into some rooms, saying they felt scared for no reason. Ada once said in an interview that they even called in a priest to bless the house because they didn't know what else to do. Even their guests felt something strange. One friend said they woke up in the middle of the night and felt someone sitting on the edge of the bed, but when they turned on the light, no one was there. Another guest heard a woman singing softly, even though no music was playing anywhere in the house. Robbie and Ada started to feel that the mansion was not just creepy, but truly haunted. They began to sleep with the lights on and avoided certain parts of the house at night. Eventually, they decided to move out. Robbie said in an interview that the house was beautiful but had a dark energy that never went away. He said, something didn't feel right. After they left, they talked more openly about their experiences. Robbie even joked about it in interviews, but he made it clear that what happened there was real and terrifying. The mansion still stands today, and many believe it holds secrets from the past, secrets that still haunt its halls. 7. Robbie Williams. The famous musician Boy George once lived in a large, old house in Hampstead, London. The house was beautiful and full of history. But it was also filled with strange and scary happenings that made Boy George believe it was haunted. He spoke many times about the unusual things he experienced there, and he even invited paranormal experts to investigate the house. Boy George said that from the beginning, he felt something was not right in the house. Even though it looked normal during the day, the atmosphere changed at night. He began to hear odd noises like footsteps, whispering, and knocking sounds when no one else was around. He once said that he felt like he was being watched, especially when he was alone in a room. There were cold spots in the house, even in the summer. The air would suddenly feel cold, and he would get goosebumps for no reason. One of the most frightening things he saw was a ghostly figure. He described it as a man standing at the end of the hallway. The figure didn't move or speak. It just stood there, staring. When Boy George turned the light on, the figure disappeared. He was so shocked that he couldn't sleep properly for days. He started to keep lights on at night because he was afraid the ghost would come back. He said it didn't feel evil, but it was very unsettling. He also had guests who experienced strange things in the house. One friend said they heard a woman crying softly in the next room, but when they checked, no one was there. Another visitor said they felt someone touch their shoulder when they were alone. These stories made Boy George even more convinced that the house was haunted. He believed the spirits were connected to the house's long history, possibly from the Victorian times. Boy George eventually called in ghost hunters and paranormal experts. They used special equipment to detect spirits. According to reports, they found unusual energy in the house and said there could be more than one ghost present. Some experts believed the spirits were not dangerous but were stuck there, unable to move on. Even with these explanations, Boy George never felt fully comfortable in the house. He said he learned to live with the ghosts, but he always felt their presence. In interviews, he often spoke about his experiences with humor, but it was clear that the fear he felt was real. After many years, he decided to sell the house. He moved somewhere new, hoping for peace and quiet. The house still exists in Hampstead, and locals say it has a spooky feel. Some believe the ghosts are still there, quietly walking the halls and watching from the shadows, just as they did when Boy George lived there. 8. Emma Thompson. The famous singer and songwriter Noel Gallagher, best known from the band Oasis, once lived in a grand house in the countryside of Buckinghamshire, England. The house looked peaceful and beautiful from the outside, with large gardens and old trees, but Noel and his family soon discovered that the house had a very dark and scary side. Noel has talked openly in interviews about the strange and frightening things that happened while living there. Not long after moving in, Noel and his wife began to feel that something was wrong with the house. It started with small things. They would hear footsteps upstairs when no one was there. Doors would open by themselves. Lights would turn off and on for no reason. At first, they thought it might be electrical problems or just the house settling, since it was very old. But the strange things continued and got worse over time. One night, Noel's wife heard someone walking in the hallway late at night. She thought it was Noel, but when she got up to check, the hallway was empty. The footsteps stopped as soon as she opened the door. She also said she felt cold spots in the house, where the temperature suddenly dropped even though the heating was on. These cold spots made her feel like someone was standing very close, even though no one was there. Noel himself once said that the house gave him a bad feeling. He did not like being there alone. He felt like he was always being watched. Even their dog would bark at empty corners of the room, like it saw something that the humans couldn't. The family became so uncomfortable that they avoided certain rooms, especially at night. Noel admitted that he was never a big believer in ghosts before, but this house changed his mind. The family tried to ignore the strange things, hoping they would stop. But one day, their daughter told them she saw a man standing at the end of her bed. He didn't speak or move, he just stood there, watching her. She was so frightened that she screamed, and when Noel and his wife rushed in, there was no one there. That was the moment they decided they couldn't stay in the house any longer. Noel and his family soon moved out of the house. He later said in interviews that it was the creepiest place he had ever lived in. He didn't feel safe, and neither did his family. The house was later sold, but people in the area still talk about it. Some believe the house is haunted by someone from its past, maybe a former owner or someone who died there long ago. Whatever it was, Noel Gallagher and his family were never the same after living in that haunted home.